Conflict have shifted to Washington. President Clinton and the Russian envoy Viktor Chernomyrdin are holding talks at the White House. But the air campaign went on amid Serb claims that a stray NATO missile had again hit a civilian bus, killing 17 people. Here's Lauren Taylor.
In the latest diplomatic efforts to end the war, the Russian envoy Viktor Chernomyrdin arrived in Washington tonight for a meeting with President Clinton to discuss a new peace proposal. But earlier, at a separate news conference with the Japanese Prime Minister, Mr. Clinton had made it clear that the bombing will only stop if the Serb leader accepts NATO's demands.
Our air campaign cannot stop until Mr. Milosevic shows he is ready to end the nightmare for the people of Kosovo.
NATO says it has intensified its airstrikes, but would not confirm Serb reports that Allied bombs hit a bus today, killing at least 17 civilians. At their daily briefing, NATO officials showed pictures of some of the infrastructure that's been destroyed, but also gave details of attacks on power stations, which have caused blackouts in wide areas of Serbia and Belgrade. A new type of bomb has been used for the first time in this conflict to disrupt power without destroying the plants.
This power feeds the airfields, headquarters, communications, and the entire command and control network. No power means no runway lights, no secure communications at all.
Those tactics of knocking out power will continue to be used to make it safer for the Allied planes, which once again set off tonight from airbases in Italy for further raids on Serbia. Lauren Taylor, ITN.
Just before we came on air, I spoke to our correspondent in Belgrade, Julian Mannion. Julian, what is the situation in
last Friday's Soho pub bombing and similar attacks in Brixton and Brick Lane? He's also charged with 3 counts of murder. The 22-year-old from Cove in Hampshire sat flanked by security guards as he listened to his lawyer outline the case. The magistrate remanded David Copeland in custody for 7 days, and he was driven away with a police escort. While the hearing was taking place, Prince Charles visited the scene of Friday evening's attack. Accompanied by senior detectives from Scotland Yard, he met police officers who were first on the scene and others who were caught up in the blast. He said his thoughts were with the victims and their families and described the attacks as being against the whole of society. Later, the Prince visited one of several hospitals which treated those injured by both the Brixton and Soho nail bombs and spoke to staff about how they'd coped with the number of casualties. Tonight, 19 victims of the Soho bomb are still being treated at hospitals in and around London. Some are being kept at specialist burns units. 6 of the injured are in intensive care. Their condition is described as critical but stable. Ben McCarthy, ITN at University College Hospital.
The police say they've received a steady stream of calls following the release of video footage showing Jill Dando walking into a shop less than an hour before she was murdered. They've made a fresh appeal for more security camera film like this so they can piece together the presenter's last movements. A former Israeli army officer has been jailed for 20 years for shooting 2 British students who were on holiday in Israel. Max Hunter was killed and Charlotte Gibb was left with serious injuries after accepting a lift from Daniel Okev. From tomorrow, learner drivers will have to face a longer, more difficult test to gain their licences. The regulations will be tougher on candidates who make a series of small mistakes. The new driving test will take an average of 40 minutes, 7 minutes longer than the current test. Candidates will fail if they make 15 small errors or 1 more serious one, and there'll be more driving on higher speed roads. The body of the legendary British mountaineer George Mallory has been found on Mount Everest 75 years after he disappeared close to the summit. As Philippa Young explains, the team who found him are now hoping to prove that it was Mallory and not Sir Edmund Hillary who first conquered Everest.
It's always tantalised the world's greatest adventurers, and it's the scene of one of the century's most intriguing mysteries. George Mallory famously said he wanted to conquer Everest because it's there. In 1924, he set out for the summit but disappeared without trace. 75 years on, still dressed in a tweed suit, his body's been found.
It's hard to convey our excitement over this discovery. Our expedition was formed to pay homage to these great British climbers.
In 1953, Sir Edmund Hillary and Sherpa Tenzing were celebrated as the first men to conquer Everest. But no one can be sure Mallory hadn't beaten them to the top of the world 29 years earlier. The search is on for his camera. At home in New Zealand today, Sir Edmund Hillary acknowledged a photograph from the summit would end the uncertainty for good.
For 45 years, people have regarded me as the hero of Everest, so I've done pretty well anyway, so I couldn't complain too much if Mallory had proved to have actually reached the summit.
Proving it would mean rewriting history.
I don't think that in any way belittles, for instance, the achievement of Ed Hillary and Sherpa Tenzing in 1953, but it still is. It would be an intriguing chapter in the history of mountaineering.
Finding Mallory's body is just one piece of the jigsaw. Until his camera's found, the mystery of who was first to conquer Everest will endure. Philippa Young, ITN.
Football, and in the Scottish Premier